In the arid landscape of southern Arizona, a huge milestone for the Phoenix Zoo is about to take place. A small, rare owl is given a chance of a comeback. And it's thanks to the efforts of the Phoenix Zoo and their conservation partners that animals like the cactus ferruginous pygmy-owl have a second chance in the wild.
I think conservation is at the core of everything we do here at the zoo. We firmly believe that we should be working on conservation issues in our own backyard. And we have many imperiled species that are found regionally here in Arizona that need our help. And if it weren't for zoos and aquariums, AZA zoos and aquariums, many of these species would already be gone.
If you come to the Phoenix Zoo, what you might expect to see are the more traditional animals like lions, cheetahs, or even a scarlet macaw. But behind the scenes, the Phoenix Zoo is doing so much more for local and native species in the Southwest region.
The Phoenix Zoo is really proud of our role in native species conservation. And so it's not enough for us to just do the work, but we really need to share those stories with others. So our education programs are really an important aspect of what we do. A lot of what we do in our Johnson Conservation Center is off exhibit, we call it, so it's off the public view. So we have to bring the stories to our guests. We want to tell everybody our stories because there's a reason that you can't go into the Conservation Center. It needs to be biosecure to keep the animals there safe, because many of them will be eventually released to the wild. Here at the Phoenix Zoo, we work with 10 different native species of conservation concern presently, 9 animals and 1 plant. So we work with black-footed ferrets, Mount Graham red squirrels, cactus ferruginous pygmy-owls, 2 species of native fish, desert pupfish and Gila top minnow, 2 species of spring snail, the Huachuca spring snail and San Bernardino spring snail, as well as narrow-headed garter snake, Chiricahua leopard frogs, and our plant, the Huachuca water umble.
Here at the Arthur L. and Elaine V. Johnson Conservation Center, we use zoo-based tools to help recover native species. We raise and breed species with the ultimate goal of being able to release them back out to the wild to help recover those populations.
These tadpoles are about a week old. The current egg mass that we brought in was laid just a couple days ago, and so within the next 3 to 5 days, that next egg mass will start hatching out. Once those animals hatch out, they'll fall down through that strainer, land on the bottom of the tank, and start eating the algae in the tank. Whenever they get a little bit bigger, more towards the size of these tadpoles, we'll start offering them their different diet items. Yeah, every day here at the Conservation Center is different. So we have a variety of species here, and it could be one day we're working with our mammals and birds, the next day we could be working with our aquatic species. And every day starts with animal checks. So we go through, we check the animals, are they healthy, are their life support systems working? From a broader scale, one of the big challenges we face is that we're one of the only facilities that houses some of the species that we have. A lot of the species we work with are threatened or endangered, and so it makes it exciting as someone to work with them because a lot of people don't get to see these animals in the wild. A lot of people have never worked with them in a captive setting either. But it also becomes with challenges because we have to take extra care whenever we have these animals in our facilities. And so we have to do a lot of work in order to figure out what do we need to learn about this species in order to keep it in an environment that it will successfully reproduce in. And because we are the only facility that houses them, it takes quite a bit of time. It takes a lot of effort, data collection, a lot of trials and errors in order to finally figure out what it is that these species need.
As a partner in the Association of Zoos and Aquariums Species Survival Plan for black-footed ferrets, The Phoenix Zoo is one of only 6 facilities in the world breeding this highly endangered species for release to the wild.
Our animals have health checks, whether it's an annual health checkup or breeding checks. For example, for our ferrets, these ferrets get exams every year, and we're looking for, general body condition. We want to look at blood work. We want to look at any signs of disease or infection on these animals, just as an overall keeping them in a great body health, good body condition. And then for reproductive checks, for most of our species, they do have reproductive seasonality, and so we're looking for, do they have morphological development that suggests that they're getting close to reproduction. Whenever we have offspring, we want to do checks on the offspring as well. For certain animals like our ferrets, the offspring get vaccinations. We want to make sure we do routine weights to make sure they're growing properly and that we're overall producing healthy animals that will be good for release to the wild.
With all of our programs, it's a partnership between the Phoenix Zoo and usually Arizona Game and Fish Department, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and usually other partners as well. And so whereas we might be raising and breeding animals for release back to the wild and helping our partners with the field work, our field partners might have expertise in other things. In the case of the Chiricahua leopard frog, for example, we've provided over 26,000 individuals for release back to the wild over the course of 25 or more years. And so those individuals have been able to be released into places often where the species has been lost but still has good habitat. And so our partners really help figure out what are the best places that are conducive to the survival of those individuals. And then we provide the animals and help usually with the releases.
Most of our species are from areas that aren't very close to Phoenix, so we're talking probably 2 to 3 hours or more driving around the state. And so we will pack up all of our equipment. It's usually early mornings, a few hours of driving. We get to the field site, we meet our partners there, get our equipment out, and then it usually involves some hiking to the field site. And then we'll do some surveys of the area if we're doing population surveys, which also involves some data collection, or we'll transport our animals out to the release site. A lot of these animals existed here in Arizona long before humans came along, and a lot of them are impacted by human activities in one way or another, whether it's directly or indirectly. And so being able to kind of help mitigate our human impact on the ecosystem by bringing these animals in, rearing them at our facilities, breeding, and then being able to release them back to the wild, it's very important for us to, eliminate the impact that we're having on the ecosystem and try to help restore it to what it once was. So my favorite species here at the Phoenix Zoo is our species of spring snails. So as a whole, freshwater mollusks are one of the most endangered groups of animals in North America. And these species in particular are very interesting because they're very, very small, about 2 to 3 millimeters. A lot of people might not even notice them. A lot of people, when they come look at our tanks, still don't notice them. And so they might get looked over a lot, but they do actually play important roles in the ecosystem. So I think that this program as a whole is a good example of, it takes a lot of hard work, but if you keep persisting with these species that we have, eventually we'll be able to do some successful propagation, and hopefully that will lead to release. I have a soft spot for gastropods and snails in general. Seeing these small animals and their intricate shells, I love them. They're very cute.
Rate 60, heart rate's 480.
The cactus ferruginous pygmy-owl is an animal of greatest conservation need in Arizona, likely only numbering in the low hundreds in the state. The efforts of the Phoenix Zoo and their partners to breed and eventually release these small birds of prey into the wild will help give this tiny owl a fighting chance of recovery.
One of the most rewarding pieces of our job here across our entire team is that day when you get to go out with the conservation partners and release animals back to the wild that you've spent all this time building up to that one moment, and being able to be there and be part of that work is an incredible reward and so satisfying as part of our jobs.
Back in the desert of southern Arizona, a huge milestone is about to take place. At the end of 2021, and after years of working with these owls at the zoo and breeding them successfully, the Phoenix Zoo participated in its first release of owls, hatched at the zoo, back into the wild. With releases like this, conservation biologists hope to reestablish lost populations of native species. And it couldn't be done without the hard work and efforts of the Phoenix Zoo and their conservation partners.
The Phoenix Zoo is really proud to be making a significant contribution to native species conservation. And that's part of who we are. It's part of our identity. Yes, we have animals from all over the world, and we share those stories with our guests, but we feel that we have a real obligation to do the same for species in our own state. And so we want to tell those stories and say, look, where we live is really special, and we have an important responsibility to take good care of what's here and to make sure that we leave the next generations with healthy populations of wildlife that we care about and healthy ecosystems.
After their release, biologists from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and other state and federal agencies check on their radio telemetry to see how they're adapting to their newly found freedom.
Conservation for the Phoenix Zoo is probably our most important function. We hope to be very effective in helping a lot of species that are in dire need as time goes on. Helping animals thrive actually helps us as human beings. Biodiversity is very important for humans. And if we can help save wildlife and wild places, we're better off as the human species.